You want more on the Avs? You got it.
Honestly, does it really matter right now?
That's the problem, right?
No, just about anybody can get in front of a microphone and talk about hockey. How on earth do you get involved in something like this?
It was kind of a fluke.
It's funny that this podcast is going off the rails so quickly.
This is From the Cheap Seats, an Avalanche fan podcast from 9 News. Seated in the conference room, here are your hosts, Steve Staeger and Geoff Sawtell.
Still not in the conference room. We are in the green room of 9 News, which I just upgraded. Let me tell you, you've heard me for the last few weeks complaining about the seats in here. I picked the one that usually goes where you sit typically. This is a nice chair.
It is kind of nice, isn't it?
It doesn't have that giant wooden block at the end that I, for some reason, like to cliffhang on, and it is just miserable, that other chair. I mean, it's right here. I shouldn't be talking about it right in front of it.
It can hear you, Steve.
Next time I sit down, there's going to be a nail sticking straight up or something like that.
I feel if you put more than 2 pounds on that, the middle of it just gives out.
Oh, yeah. And people have been putting more than 2 pounds on it for years. I can tell you that because it has no center. I'm surprised that I don't just fall through this thing every time I try to sit down in it, but I'm in a much more comfortable chair. I'm a happy camper. Glad to have you along. Episode 12 here of From the Cheap Seats. I got to tell you, we've been doing this now. What did you say? 3 months,
This makes
right?
3 months.
If I figured out how to do math, I would have been able to figure that out too. But we were sitting at the hockey game the other night. The first one that we went to together of what, 6 home games so far this year? That Wednesday night was the first game we go together. And of course, it's an overtime loss. Why not? You know, yeah. But anyway, we were talking about it, and we're still here. We're still doing this.
We haven't been shut down.
We have not been shut down.
Much to our surprise.
Unbelievably, it's good to be along and still doing this. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about this week.
It's been busy.
Yeah, in the last 24 hours or so. So again, we're taping this here on a Friday night. You'd think that after 3 months of doing this show that we would have figured out that we probably should tape it at different times so we aren't missing hockey games while we're taping it. We have a big monitor here in the green room, but we're afraid to turn it on the Avs game for fear of what Altitude would do to us if we posted a YouTube video with just the game going on in the background. We'd get a cease and desist order from the NHL.
Very quickly. Although maybe we could have Coors Distributing come in and talk to them on our behalf. Yeah.
Here we are, 1 week later. I still have no clue what that means.
It makes no sense.
I still have no idea. What did that Coors and Anheuser-Busch somehow got Altitude in sports bars around town?
And there's never been any further explanation.
Did they intervene to get this deal with DirectTV? We'll talk about all that in a little bit because we're going to chat with. You know what? Let me play it for you now too because I played it earlier, or I played it in the interview, but I'm going to play it now, just so you can hear how amazingly sweet this is. I got a voicemail this week from a disgruntled Avs fan. I don't think she listens to the show because I know her husband does the computer, so I don't know if her husband listens to the show or not. But take a listen to the.
Steve, this is Eunice Heiser in Laramie, Wyoming, and I'm a disgruntled Avs fan, and I tried to call the DirectTV number that was on the Nuggets broadcast, and I got the greatest runaround.
All right, so that's Eunice Heiser. We'll play the rest of that voicemail in just a little bit, and we'll talk to Eunice from Laramie, Wyoming. I think there's a chance she got this deal done.
She's being very modest about it, but absolutely.
Yeah.
This was a rapid succession there.
Yeah. If you look at the timeline of events, I'm no detective. I'm no investigative reporter, though I like to play one on TV from time to time. But if you look at the timeline of events of Eunice's phone call, my tweet about Eunice, then my phone call from AT&T asking about Eunice, and then all of a sudden there's a deal with DirectTV. I think there's something there, but we'll talk to Eunice about that in just a little bit. I did not cut audio from last week's show to play in this show because I didn't want to show what an idiot I was. But you heard me in the last episode talking all about, oh, don't worry, if we lose Mikko Rantanen, look at how deep this team is. Boy, did those words come back to haunt me a couple of days later when at practice it's announced that Gabriel Landeskog is out, a friend of this show.
Apparently, when he was here, you stole some hair and made a voodoo doll of him.
I don't know what happened. And no one really does. According to Bednar, it was an injury over 2 games, the Saturday game and the Monday night game.
Yeah.
Right? No, the Friday and Saturday game.
Saturday, the back-to-back.
That's right. Yeah, because there was no game on Monday night because it was another long stretch. But do we start freaking out? They haven't won.
No, I mean, the game we were at, they lost in overtime. I mean, they were comfortably ahead until the last 5 minutes, and then they just fell apart.
Well, and they fell apart in large part thanks to Nikita Zadorov.
Him getting ejected definitely did not help. When you're trying to protect a lead and your big physical defenseman is gone.
Well, and wasn't that on the power play that they scored the goal?
The first goal came on that
to
power
get
play.
get within 1, and then they pull the goalie and they score on that. And then it's like there was no fun in that third period on Wednesday night against the Florida Panthers, by the way, is what we're talking about at Pepsi Center. There was no fun because about 30 seconds in, I don't think the Avs even touched the puck unless Philip Grubauer might have nicked it on its way into the net. But
in overtime, didn't even come close.
And
dropped back and literally fell over each other.
I was a couple of blue moons deep at that point, so everything moved pretty quickly. But, man, that was something.
I mean, you have to look at it. It's a long season. This is a very good team. It sounds like Rantanen's should be back on the faster end of the expectation. He's back to practice already, so that'll help a lot. But, I mean, we talk about depth, and this is a much deeper team than it has been. But it's hard for any team to lose 2 of their top 3 players at the same time and still do well.
And not have it shake you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for the most part, they played pretty well.
Yeah.
And there wasn't as much rhythm and flow to it as you normally see. But, hey, they had a good number of shots. They were scoring some goals.
And as of tonight, Friday night, once again, we released this episode on a Tuesday. Nathan McKinnon's still on a point streak.
Still on a point streak.
What is it? The longest in? It's not the longest in league history.
Longest in franchise history. League history actually was Danny Heatley with the Thrashers. I think he had 22.
22 straight games
to start the season.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. With the Thrashers.
That takes you back.
That takes you back. That was a failed experiment.
Yeah.
Who are they now?
Winnipeg.
Yes, the Winnipeg Jets. That's right. That's the one time that hockey corrected itself.
Exactly.
Still haven't sent a team back to Hartford, but that's the one time that hockey's corrected it. Or Quebec, but we're cool with that. But, yeah. I don't know if we should freak out. I'm not freaking out. I think this team is deep enough to win some games, even if Mikko and Gabe aren't in the lineup.
Yeah. I mean, the tying goal the other night was just a beautiful screen. Grubauer never saw it coming. He was playing well. Not his best game ever, but he was making some impressive saves. Save of the year candidate, and the one where he just reached behind his back and snagged it out of the air.
That was pretty good.
I mean, this team's good enough to win fairly regularly, even without them.
Yeah.
But
and the hope is
it'd be nice to get them back.
Although I'm telling you, with what Bednar was saying the other day, that's nerve-wracking. When he's saying, well, I think it was week to week, but like really not just a week.
Yeah, I mean, longer than your standard week to week.
Where Rantanen was week to week, but also
on the short end.
Yeah. So I don't know. Can we talk about how great the fourth line is, though?
Oh,
that was
Lord.
The one line that Jared Bednar did not touch, and they still got points. Matt Calvert scored a goal.
Yeah.
In Wednesday night's game, right?
Yep.
Yeah. This is before the Blue Moons kicked in. Which, by the way, I haven't had a Blue Moon in that kind of quantity in a while. And the next morning I woke up and I was like, man, I was not buzzed or anything last night, but boy, do I have a headache.
I feel we should mention that we light rail to and from
Yes,
games. So there was no driving involved.
Yes, there was no driving. But it was one of those things where you haven't had, like, I haven't had a wheat beer in a while, and I haven't had a mass quantity wheat beer in a while.
Hits you a little differently.
It does. It really does. But this was also the first experience that I had with some of Pepsi's new concession stands. And I'm curious out there in Avs Nation what you think about what they've done with the concession stands. If you've been to the games at Pepsi Center, cheap seats at 9news.com, or hit us up on Twitter, 9cheapseats on Twitter. I was impressed. I had a bison pastrami sandwich Which, by the way, and I don't understand this. All of the concession stands behind us were open.
I haven't seen that in at least a full year.
Is that the new food? Because this was by no means a sold-out game.
Oh, no.
But it's almost like Pepsi Center runs with a different protocol on different nights. This was one of those few nights where as you're walking in, we come in through the light rail entrance, which is the main entrance with the big doors in front of the giant statue. But off to the side, there's the door where you can go in and go up the stairs. And that's rarely ever open. And it was open. And I don't understand why.
Get a nice little workout before the start of the game.
But why? But like I don't.
It was cold out. They
Is it
wanted to give
because-
people more options.
Because they had enough security staff to come there.
I
or-
imagine that has something to do with it. Just
Is
who's
it-
available to
Yeah,
cover.
I wonder if we have this certain number this night, and that's why we open more entrances. But I have never once in that building walked up and been the first person in line. And it wasn't like we were showing up that early.
Yeah, we got there
45 minutes before? Maybe 30 minutes before?
about 30 minutes, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because we came here after work.
Yeah. But I mean, there's still a good crowd there already.
Yeah, there always is. Although it was relatively empty for the first
Yeah.
maybe 10 minutes of that game. It filled up.
But-
It wasn't full by any means. Rod
But,
Mackey, by
yeah.
the way, was complaining to me. Rod, one of my favorite things about Rod is how cheap he is. He fits in with this whole thing very, very well. But Rod was like, yeah, I got Friday night off. I was going to go to the Stars game. The cheapest tickets I could find were $40, which that's pretty steep
Yeah.
for an Avs game.
For that upper level.
Makes me think I should have given the tickets to Katie tonight. We should have sold those things if they were going for $40.
Sell them to Rod for 35.
Yeah, make it a deal. I don't think he's going. I think that was too much. That was too rich for Rod's blood. The $40. Mr. Sports Director here at 9 News. He's the guy who waits until the last minute because they do some like rush ticket deal, don't they? Where you
Like
can
day of things that are still available.
Yeah. He's loving. If he's listening to this, he's loving it. We need to get him in here so he can actually kind of, fight back.
After this, he's not going to come.
Yeah, he's done. He's done. But apparently it's pretty expensive. But anyway.
Well, I do know some of the late arrivals the other day were very annoying for the poor people sitting next to us.
Can you explain that to me? So we come in, there are guys in our seats. So we come in, we say, hey, these are our seats. They're like, all right, then move over. And then the guy who always sits next to us, Christian, comes in. And he's like, hey, you guys are in my seats. They're like, okay.
Okay.
They
Moved
move
out two
somewhere
more.
else. They get kicked out of those seats.
So they move back a row.
At
Just
that-
kept getting kicked out and moved, kicked out and moved.
At that point, I feel like I've done that a few times. And, after the first or second you need to move,
Yeah.
that's usually when I go to my actual seat.
Yeah.
These people, and I've seen that multiple times. It's not just these people. There
No.
are a lot of people who are like, well, we'll just move wherever. It's not a baseball game. Baseball games, there are constantly seats open all over the place.
It's
But
like this is routinely sold out
yeah,
or close to it.
yeah,
You can't just take up 5 seats and assume they'll stay open the whole time.
right.
Especially when you show up half an hour before and they're already there.
It just was weird. You get to the game that early, and do you just hope that the people who are supposed to sit there are going to go like, oh, well. Because in our section, it's a lot of season ticket holders because it's super cheap.
And I know, talking with Christian, apparently he had someone, not this game, but a previous game do that, who tried to argue that it was actually their seats.
He's like, no. But I'm saying
figure.
things are getting better. And I don't know. I filled out a comment card at the end of the season last year, and I don't know if the Pepsi Center was listening, but you know what they got rid of that makes me very, very happy? They got rid of the ketchup packets, and they just put the pumps in. Because I remember thinking, why do they not have the pumps like any other sporting event would have? So you get a hot dog, and then you squeeze like a teaspoon worth of ketchup out onto it or a teaspoon worth of mustard onto it. At least this way, you can pump it out, and it's much easier to serve. And it gets people through the line. Because otherwise, you're at the little concession table, and everybody's opening their half a
packet squirt.
teaspoon
One packet
pack.
squirt.
Yeah. They're opening up 5 packages, and it takes forever. Man, this is just my complain period. I should probably stop. I sound like the most miserable human being in the world.
But you're
on this
getting
show.
results. You complain about the ketchup, they replace it. You go on Twitter and say, we're going to talk to someone about the DirectTV deal. They solve it.
Yeah. Amen. Speaking of which, we'll talk to Eunice in just a second. Longtime Avs fan from Laramie, Wyoming. She'll tell her story about how we think she got DirectTV to air Altitude again next.
Colorado is a sports state. The 9 News app puts all of our great stories in one place. From the pros to the preps, you'll find it all. Plus the latest Broncos update from insider Mike Quiss. The 9 News app. Download it today.
Hey Coloradans, have you heard or seen something that sparked your curiosity? We want to hear about it. Call, email, or find us on social media. 9 News listens.
So I got a voicemail the other day from someone from Laramie, Wyoming. You want me to play it for you?
Go for it.
Let me crank it up here.
Steve, this is Eunice in Laramie, Wyoming, and I'm a disgruntled Avs fan, and I tried to call the DirectTV number that was on the Nuggets broadcast, and I got the greatest runaround. I ended up being given a number for an auto dealership to call and talk to. I'd like to talk to you a bit about what more we can do to get our Avs back on the air.
Eunice was upset, and I decided, why don't we talk to Eunice? So I gave her a call. Eunice, are you there?
Yes.
There she is. You are a happy person, right? Because this is good for you.
I'm very happy. I'm looking forward to tonight.
You are. All right, let's start. Tell me what happened the other day. So you watched the Nuggets on Channel 20, and then what happened after that?
Oh, well, then, I believe Monday morning, I called, and finally, after, doing the usual thing with the computer, punch this, punch that, punch something else, I finally got a real person, I think. And talking to her, I kept saying, I just have a complaint. I'd like to speak to someone in management. Well, she must have got tired of that, because then she said, well, here's a number. And she gave me a number. And so I said, okay, and hung up, called the number she gave me, and got an auto dealership.
What auto dealership, do you know?
Somebody Chevrolet.
Okay, so a Chevy dealership.
Yeah, so I just hung up real quick, called called DirectTV back. Finally, I got to somebody, and we were going round and round because they still wouldn't let me talk to anybody with my complaint. So finally, I said, I just want to complain about not being able to receive the Avs and the Nuggets and on and on. And then they said, well, what's your PIN number? And they had already asked for my phone number and everything else. And I figured since we had an account with them, they probably already had that. So I informed them I didn't know what the PIN number was.
Yeah.
And hung up.
So you hung up just out of frustration, and then you called me.
Yes.
So what? So you called me, and then I'll pick up the story from there, because this was the. So we chatted. What was that? Wednesday or was it Tuesday?
Oh, geez. I think it was Wednesday.
I can't even remember. But you and I chatted at one point because I thought, man, we should talk to Eunice on the podcast. So I called Eunice back, and I chatted with you for a little while, and then I just tweeted something about it. Promoting Eunice is going to be our guest on Friday on From the Cheap Seats. She's disgruntled because of her DirectTV doesn't have the Avalanche, and we want to talk about how to get him back on the air. I tweeted something, and the next day I get into work, and I've got a voicemail on my desk line from AT&T, from a spokesperson at AT&T, saying you referenced one of our customers. We're just curious. Can you put us in touch with the customer? I hope you don't mind, Eunice. I gave him your number. Does that?
That's fine.
Okay, so I gave him your number, and then what happened after that?
Well, yesterday I was out for a walk, came back, and my husband said, listen to this thing on the answering machine. So I did, and it was a lady from AT&T, the president's office, wanting to speak to me about what had happened when I called customer service. And left me her number and when to call, and it wasn't quite 5 o'clock, so I tried to call her back. got her voicemail, left a message, and she had mentioned it in her message on the answering machine that she was also sending an email. So my husband, who does the computer, ran down, got on his computer, and sure enough, there was an email from her. So he wrote her a very nice email back explaining what our problem was and everything. Then this morning, she calls me back and was very nice, and we finally agreed that I was upset because, first off, I didn't get to talk to a real person when I very first called. And that, explained to her what had happened. And ended up, she said, well, when the negotiations, which went longer than anticipated, they had finally reached an agreement and all that. And since I was so upset, she wanted to know if she could give me a refund on my bill for my inconvenience.
Hey!
And I said, you sure can.
How about that?
I don't think anyone has ever said no to that offer.
No.
No.
That's pretty impressive. So how much of a credit did you get?
$25 whole.
$25.
Or at least that's what she's promised me. Now it hasn't showed up yet on our bill.
That's okay.
It's on the record now, though.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, if you need, I will give you this tape and we can play it back, so the world now knows that AT&T owes you. Well, so I think we should just go out on a limb and say that Eunice is the reason that Altitude is back on television.
100%.
Because I think that your phone call to me scared them enough that they decided to get things fixed and get things right, huh?
Well, I'd like to think I was that important, but I have a hunch that maybe they and the Cronkies finally decided to quit fooling around.
Yeah, that's probably it. But I think we can just blame it all on Eunice. I think that's a great. Wouldn't you like the credit for that?
Well, I don't know.
I think you should. I think you should take it. So Laramie, when you called and said you were from Laramie, Wyoming, it sparked my interest instantly. How did you get involved in the Avalanche? Obviously, they're the hockey team that's on TV there, but what made you a fan? You're a diehard.
Oh, well, it's a very long story, but my daughter was the first fan in the family, and we sort of watched some games. And then the year that the pros first played in the Olympics, I thought, oh, gosh, there's a lot of Avalanche going to that. I should watch some of their games. Well, by the time the Olympics was over, my husband had learned how to fend for himself because I was occupied all day long and half the night.
Really?
And after that, I just became a rabid fan, and my daughter gave us tickets in 2007 for an anniversary present. And so ever since then, we've been down to at least one game a year. We used to like it because it was during the kind of a lull, and we were able to get the tickets down in rows 15 to 20 on the puck pass thing. So we got really spoiled.
My God! Well, they should give you the tickets to rows 15. If you're the one who's negotiating deals with DirectTV and getting this done, Eunice, take it from me. Take the credit for this. I think we should create something and let people know that this is all Eunice's. Eunice scared DirectTV enough to get them to put Altitude back on television.
Well, but we used to get the puck pass tickets, and sometimes there'd be 4 of us, sometimes 6. One year we had, I think, 14 of us came down for a game.
Too cool.
And we kind of like to make a big deal out of it, so we go down and go to dinner and go to the game and stay overnight and go to breakfast and come back home.
That's pretty cool.
That's a way to do it.
Where do you stay downtown?
That's why we can only go once a year.
Where do you stay downtown when you're here?
We used to stay over at the old VQ or the old Holiday Inn by the football stadium.
Okay, yeah.
And then they kind of closed that down, so we've gone the last 2 or 3 times. We've stayed at the Marriott, and we used to eat at, I think it was called Bronze, and then they closed, and so we started going to Brooklands for dinner.
Oh, yeah. Right by the stadium. It's easy to get in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And for a while, it was one of the only places where you could watch the games.
Oh, yes, and sometimes we get to watch our Wyoming Cowboys on their TV.
There you go. Go Pokes, right?
Right.
What's it like in Wyoming? Are there a lot of big hockey fans up there?
They're getting to be more and more, I think, because I run into people when I go shopping because I wear an Avs parka most of the time.
There you go.
Nicely done.
Oh, I like you more and more every minute, Eunice. Well, I mean, is there a lot of? Do you guys have a local team up there that you can pop over to the rink and watch some games?
There's some college games and some kids games, but I don't usually go to those. I'm too busy watching the Avalanche.
There you go. I love that. Well, I'm so glad that it's back on your television.
Oh, so am I, because if there isn't an Avs game, then I hunt around till I find some former Av is playing on. So I watch a lot of the Knights and stuff like that.
Oh, it's so great. I am so glad to hear that story, and it's cool to hear from a fan who lives in a different state, and I'm so glad this could all get sorted out for you.
Well, I'm so glad, too, especially for the $25, and that I'm going to be able to watch the games, and I hope we don't have to go through this again.
Yeah. Well, and I know there are a lot of people out there who are still hoping that they get a deal done because they're still blacked out on Comcast and Dish Network as of Friday when we're taping this. So we'll have to see.
Well, we'll hope that they luck out, too, because we need our Avs on television.
Heck yeah. When are you coming down for a game?
I don't know, whenever the kids buy me tickets.
Can I convince them at all? Do you want me to give them a phone call and convince them to buy you tickets soon?
Oh, no, they know.
Okay. Well, you'll have to come and see us because we try to get there as much as possible.
Oh, okay, and you're way up high. We went up there 2 or 3 times, but the one daughter and I kind of have vertigo and felt like we needed a seatbelt so we wouldn't fall over the edge.
How about this? We'll come to you then. We'll come down to the first level. We'll take a picture in the concourse. I would love to meet you, Eunice.
Oh, well, I'd love to meet you and Kyle, and anytime you want to come up and check out the local brew pubs, I'll be glad to see you.
Oh, heck yeah. I've only been to Laramie once on a story, and I would love to get up there again. Before I let you go, I got to ask you, what's your favorite Avalanche fan memory?
Oh, my goodness.
It's going to make you think, right?
Oh, God, yeah. I'm not good at that.
Do you think they have a shot at the Cup this year?
I hope so.
Yeah. I really think they've got a good chance. Maybe you could – that's what you should do is convince your kids to get you tickets to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Well, that would be really nice. And maybe, well, I really, really wanted, to come to a Flames Avs game last year, but I don't think – anyway, it just didn't work out.
That's okay. That's all right. Well, Eunice, we'll get your best Avalanche memory when we see you at a game this year. How about that?
Okay, I'll take you up on that. I'll look you up if we make it down.
Perfect. Well, yeah, you've got my number now. This is my cell phone number, so you've got my number. No excuses.
No excuses. Okay, I can call you anytime at the station or on your cell.
There you go. All right, Eunice, you're the best. Thank you for all that you did to get this deal done. Again, Eunice Heiser, the savior for DirectTV and Altitude. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you soon.
And now I hope all my friends still like me.
Yeah, you're going to have lots of parties at your house now. I think is how that works. I think you have now. Yeah, everybody's coming over to watch hockey games there.
Okay, as long as they keep their mouth shut and don't interrupt.
There you go. All right, Eunice, take it easy. We'll talk soon.
Okay,
right,
bye-bye.
Bye.
Eunice Heiser, the savior. I think we should make that into a thing. She should be the savior of Altitude on TV.
Absolutely.
What a lovely, lovely lady.
Like that's a real fan.
It really is. And I cannot believe how that played out. I didn't know that I had that much power. All I literally tweeted, and I could probably go back and look at my Twitter, I just said a diehard Avs fan, something, something, something. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. Something about a diehard Avs fan, and next thing I know, I walk in and somebody asked me why I was laughing so hard. Yeah, AT&T, and I wonder if it was because they were so close to a deal.
They probably didn't want bad press just before.
Maybe.
No, I mean, all I know is you should find someone with Comcast and that a similar story and invite them on next week. See if we can get that one sorted out real quick too.
Yeah, here's what I said. Eunice from Laramie, Wyoming called and left a message on my voicemail. Says she's a disgruntled Avs fan in Laramie, Wyoming. She called DirectTV to complain and says they forwarded her call to a car dealer. And And then apparently, somehow, I didn't even tag DirectTV in that. They must have been searching for disgruntled people, saw this, and flagged their, like, the president of AT&T's office. And somehow, this show gets things done.
Either that or the random Chevy mechanic chimed in and was the linchpin to the negotiation.
It could be. Yeah. What'd you call it? Kent Stevenson or something? Or like,
Right.
I wonder where she called. I wonder because it had to be an 800 number, right?
Either that or you would think.
Because they're not giving her a local office. Maybe they are. I don't know. But Eunice Heiser is now my favorite. We should air some of that, I think, on Next Tonight. I think we will.
I think we should.
All right. We'll wrap up the show after this.
Want to know what's going on in Colorado? Check out the Colorado Guide on the new 9 News app. We've got unique and interesting stories from what's happening in our state, plus the 9 things to do in Colorado this weekend. The 9 News app. Download it today.
There you have it. So, Eunice, thank you very much for solving this problem on Altitude. We didn't get a chance to talk about that at the front segment of the show. We figured we probably should. The biggest development for fans out there, that Altitude is now back on DirectTV as of Thursday night, and as of Friday night, still blacked out on Comcast and on Dish Network. This came in just literally about an hour after we reported on Next for the first time, exclusively, I hate to use that word, but it was exclusive, that the Colorado Attorney General is investigating both Comcast and DirectTV for charging a regional sports fee during this blackout time. Because you got to think about it, they still have they have AT&T Sportsnet still on the air, but they didn't have Altitude. Comcast gave a discount to people. I know I got $1.25 back on my bill, and I've heard from a lot of right $1.25 out of the $8 that they charged.
Which makes sense because there's 8 other regional sports packages or sports channels that.
No, there aren't. Right? Yeah, it's just the 2.
Yeah.
If I'm
so you should have gotten
right?
$4 back.
Yeah, which would make sense. And at the end of the day, that might end up costing those companies significantly, about $20,000 per subscriber.
Which, if you're not good at math, is more than $1.25.
Yeah, it's a lot more than $1. Maybe they were holding on to the extra, what
we're going to need this for legal fees.
They were holding on to the extra $2.75 for legal fees. But good news. I mean, I was talking to Kyle Keefe last night because we were trying to get the news confirmed. I believe Ryan S. Clark from The Athletic, Ryan S. Clark, was the one who broke the news. And then I was just trying to find anybody I could over at Altitude because I couldn't get Cronky Sports to respond to me. So I tried Kyle, and I was just talking to him. And dude got legitimately kind of emotional.
Yeah.
And I'm glad. And it wasn't until that moment. And I knew, talking about this in the past and some of the problems that people over there had with us talking to like Darren Dubersmith about the regional sports model and the viability of it. They took that kind of personally. You don't understand. I mean, this is their livelihood.
Yeah.
And they have no stake at all in the negotiations. These guys aren't sitting in a room trying to hammer out a deal with Comcast and DirectTV and Dish.
They're just trying to do their job the best they can and hope that it gets worked out so people can actually see it.
Yeah. And let me see if I can play it for you. Kiefer's, did you see Kiefer's video last night? I will just play it, in case you didn't get a chance to see it. Kyle Keefe was emotional. And I noticed that when I was chatting with him. I mean, this is his life. And I don't think a lot of people out there realize how much he cares about the people who care about the Avalanche too. Yeah. He really does. He's a genuinely nice guy. Here's what he had to say last night. Let me see if I can get it to play here. Let me see if I can get it to play with sound. That would be the key. Steve Staeger, audio engineer.
Hey, I just found out that we're back on air on DirectTV, and I think it's awesome, and I can't wait. My daughter's sick on Halloween, but I'm super excited, and I'm happy for all the Avalanche fans. So Let's go Avs, man. Ready.
Yeah, he was pretty pumped up last night. And just to hear him get emotional. I mean, you understand. I mean, this is the guy's job.
Yeah.
And to have that, and so many people, and he posted something, I think it was a week before this maybe, where he was or maybe it was last weekend, where he was at a Halloween party and some guy there was just hammering him about, why are you not getting a deal done? It's like, these guys aren't the ones in the room. And I understand that they're the most visible part of that.
You're the sort of public face of, so you're the one that people know how to get a hold of, whether it's on social media, email, at a Halloween party. You're the ones people recognize. I mean, I know reporters, anchors here, whenever we run into issues, you guys get a ton of that too.
Yeah.
Even though, and you like you said, you have no stake in it. You have no say in how any of this goes.
Yeah.
But you still have to deal with all the flack from it.
I'd respectfully just ask anyone out there, because I know that there are still, I think Comcast holds the largest percent of the market.
Mm-hmm.
There are still people out there who aren't getting this. Just remember that these people are not the ones who are making the decisions.
Yeah.
And just try to keep that in mind as you let your anger flow, which is justified. I get it. I still don't have it at home. I'm still angry, but just remember that Rycroft and obviously Johnny Lyles probably doesn't get much of this, but Kyle Keefe and Mark Mosier and Peter McNabb and Lauren Jabara, like, these people aren't the ones who are preventing a deal.
Yeah.
And that may be a personal bias, and I'll admit it, because I understand that. You understand that. We both work for a TV station.
It's legit though.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here we are a week out from our last taping, and I still have no clue how the hell that they were able to get Altitude to stream in bars and restaurants, which the night of, they said 200 plus. It was announced during the Nuggets game last Friday night. It seems like less than that. I didn't actually go through and count, but on the list, it looks like a whole lot less than that.
Yeah. And all in Denver.
Mostly. There was, like Park Meadows, one place out by Park Meadows. There's a place in Arvada, I think, on there, but mostly in Denver.
Yeah.
So you could understand Eunice's frustration.
The deal did not extend up to Wyoming.
But come today, or come actually probably just a few hours after that announcement, oh, wait a minute. Someone just, Seth on Twitter just sent me a conversation they had with Comcast Cares, and I can't read it because it's really small. But apparently he's making his point, and the Comcast representative just responded, "Point taken." So maybe they're working on something. I don't know.
Well, and that's following up with the on-air personalities. The person on the phone, the receptionist taking your complaint, also has no say in this.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's entirely justified to vent, but try not to be personal about it.
I would equate that to when I used to work weekend mornings, on Sunday mornings when we didn't air Meet the Press.
Yeah.
Because NBC didn't produce it, because there was some sort of sporting event on, and people would call and rag on us. And I'm like, come on now, please. But the statement with Altitude is fascinating. The statement from Altitude, I should say. Last night, right after the deal was signed, it's the quote from Matt Hutchins talking about, oh, this is great. They're just bummed that the teams had to, or it's from Jim Martin, the president and CEO of Colorado Sports and Entertainment. Then it goes on to say, we encourage all fans and local business owners who do not currently have DirectTV to make the switch so they won't have to miss another minute of Denver Nuggets or Colorado Avalanche games.
That's a bit of a swipe at the other two to get a deal done.
Yeah. I'm curious if that's a bad sign.
It sounds like they're either really far away or really close, and they're trying to tip them over.
But if you're really close, if you're really close, are you telling people not to?
You wouldn't want to antagonize them.
Well, you also don't want people to just switch over, because honestly, if I'm Comcast and I've got a bunch of my subscribers saying, all right, I'm going to DirectTV, then I may be less likely, because you're talking about, and remember, their contention from the beginning of all of this was that there aren't the eyeballs out there of their subscribers to watch these games.
Yeah.
And if I'm Comcast, I'm like, well, you're taking the few people that watched your product and you're making them jump over. So what incentive do I have?
That's a good point.
I don't know if that's the best strategy in the world.
Yeah.
But
Ugh.
I don't know if that's a sign. Like, to me, that's a sign that they're not close on this thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I know for a lot of us, the assumption has been if they get a deal worked out with one, then the other two would work out fairly quickly, because you have, basically, if nothing else, like a framework. Here's a deal that works. But yeah, that's maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know. This whole thing just needs to end. Just get it over with. And I'm going to be curious to see if they ever end up on Dish Network, because I don't know if Dish is interested in these programs anymore.
Might not be.
I think Comcast might be, but wasn't Charlie Ergen saying that he really wasn't interested in this kind of, like, basically that there aren't enough numbers there and they're trying to focus somewhere else? And I know that they don't charge a regional sports fee.
Yeah. So
if you think about it, their subscribers are the ones who are forking over for this thing, even though they aren't paying a fee. Like, everybody's paying for it. And there's no, it's like bundled into your subscription. I don't know. It's just, it needs to get over.
Yeah. We're all sick of it.
We talk about this every week, and it's been a month now. I mean, think about it. They've almost missed 10% of the season.
Yeah.
Or they have. Right? Because
completely more
we're
than
10.
Yeah.
We're 10 games in now. It's more than 10%.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do something at some point and just change this around. I don't know. So, let's see. Quick time for a little bit of feedback, shall we?
Let's go for it.
There's our feedback music. While I pull it up here. Ed Bodecker just emailed me or just messaged me on Facebook. Friend of mine from the Pepsi Center. He says, "Hey, Steve, just listened to your chat with Rodney. Very good stuff, dude. Not sure if he mentioned it to you, but I'm pretty sure his daughter Laura runs the ice or the off-ice officials now. So that is 3 generations who are involved in this work. Great work on the podcast." So I didn't know that. I will say, Rodney texted me right after we did the show last week and was like, my wife was like, she was sitting in here. Yeah. She was like, why didn't you tell more of those stories? So we might have to have
part 2.
We might have to have Rodney back on the show. But a lot of people appreciated that. This is really interesting to hear some of those stories.
Oh, yeah.
You tagged Ty Domi, right?
I tagged Ty Domi. He has not responded yet.
Really?
Very disappointed.
Well, wouldn't he want to get his side of the story out there?
You would think
that he's not squirting people in the seats,
or maybe he's proud of it. He is. Either way.
Yeah. Let me see if I can pull up some other feedback here. I'm very unprepared, as I usually am. A lot of people were trying to convince us to come and sit with them at the game the other night, which we had some 9 News colleagues who were there with us. Otherwise, we would have popped around.
So after the 5-minute rant we went on about people taking other people's seats, we absolutely had our 9 News people come and join us. But that was,
that was
end of the second period.
It was also in the completely empty back row.
Yeah,
no one was sitting there. And had someone come up and said, like, those are my seats, I would have gone back and told them to go back to their seats. But they love 326. I know Aiden got in touch with us, wants to get on the show. I believe we'll try to get Aiden on the show soon. I believe next week our guest will be Mr. Jake Schroeder.
The one, the only.
The one, the only. We're going to do a little Veterans Day tribute. Jake, very involved in the veterans community here in Colorado. He told this incredible story on Twitter today about what he thinks about while he's singing the national anthem. He's coming up on 1,000 games that he's been a part of and done the national anthem at Pepsi Center. Jeez. So that's pretty impressive. So we'll talk to him about that. Very quickly, shall we look at the schedule?
Yes.
what's ahead for the Avalanche, because
counting tonight's game that we are missing.
We're not missing it by much. Have you gotten a score update?
I haven't.
I don't think it's started yet.
A little behind the scenes trivia for the YouTube viewers. The wide shot where you see the whole desk is shot on my phone, so I can't see what the score is.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That chews up a little bit of space. By the way, it's 0-0 in the first period. 13:04 left in the first period right now. So on the front end of yet another back-to-back. This is what, their third of the season?
Yeah, I think it is.
So they play the Phoenix Coyotes on Saturday night. That'll be before this airs. And then they're back in Dallas, or back to play Dallas again on Tuesday, the day this episode airs. That's a 6:30 puck drop. Then on Thursday, they're home against the Predators. Saturday, they are home against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then the following Tuesday, they are away against the Winnipeg Jets.
See, that's a good spacing of games.
Yeah.
Day or two off in between, but not a huge amount of time.
I think that it's been so hard for them to develop a rhythm.
Yeah.
I know that seems weird, me complaining about that with an 8-2-2 hockey team. But it really has. I mean, you think about it.
We should be 12-0.
All that time off. But the time off is a good and a bad thing.
Lets you rest up. But yeah, I mean, you just sort of lose the feel.
Yeah. And I just don't think that that's very good. So, all right. Shall we get out of here? We probably should.
Let the poor cleaning crew actually do their jobs.
By the way, all the time that we've been in here, are you amazed? So there are, right behind me, you can't actually see it on camera, but right behind me there are two bathroom doors to the green room. The green room has a bathroom, like a men's and women's room. And I'm relatively shocked that we haven't heard the toilet flush on this show yet.
Because one of those two has a second door into it outside of this.
Oh, the other one doesn't?
No.
Oh, you're right. It doesn't. Yeah.
So people could still get in and use that without coming through our taping.
Can you imagine someone walking out of that bathroom and just, you and I are sitting in here just having a conversation with microphones on? What are all these cameras? What's going on?
We've been recording for 45 minutes.
How long have you been in there? Well, people take breaks. Yeah. I get it. It's work. We're going to get out of here. So other people you want to hear from, again, it's cheapseats@9news.com. We're going to try to get Aiden in. I've had a couple of other requests for people, other guests we're trying to book. We'll get them in. Hopefully the next time we talk, Altitude will be back on Comcast and Dish Network. I'm just saying. Time's up, guys.
Yeah.
This has been enough. Get the message from DirectTV. Put them back on television so that the fans out there in Avalanche country can watch. That's all I'm saying. Simple request. All right, we're getting out of here. We'll be back next week. Rate, review, subscribe, do all the things for us. We will see you next week.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of Steve Staeger and Geoff Sawtell, who have absolutely no business covering sports at all. They're just fans. You can tell them how wrong they are by tweeting at the show at 9cheapseats or email cheapseats@9news.com.